Hey everyone! Today, as you see, we're working on Gothic windows. Ignore the mermaid tails, please. As many of you know, I will film several things at once because otherwise I don't get anything done. So, as you see, I'm using the detergent free from Crafter's Choice with activated charcoal. Some reasons for that. One, the detergent free soap isn't super clear, and so sometimes I'll use it on things that don't need to be super clear. Another reason I like to use it on some of the more intricate molds is it doesn't set up right away, although the crystal clear doesn't either. But the more open time you have to work when you're doing, especially when you're doing larger numbers. This one really didn't matter because wasn't doing that many of them, just doing one little set here as a test. Real quick, got to point this out. If you are not comfortable with using a knife or have not done so before to trim like this, then skip ahead to 9:29 or so. I do a real quick demo of another technique that can still give you a clean line on intricate molds like this. Most molds, you just fill them, you're done. If you pour over a little, you can cut it off. But you do not want to try to cut around each one of those little spider legs, I promise you. Which is what brings me back to the using of the detergent free and using the charcoal dispersed in glycerin. You can disperse charcoal in rubbing alcohol, and sometimes I do that. But the glycerin also gives it a tiny bit more flexibility. And as you'll look here, it's pretty important that it's not brittle when you're looking at molds like this. Please note how I'm really bending the silicone, not really bending the embed itself. I try to hold on to, in fact, a little spot that keeps the embed sort of stable as I pull the silicone away from like the edges of the legs and the more delicate parts and work my way inward. That seems to be the best approach for me. I do a lot with these little delicate embeds, and you may find a much better and more efficient way to get these out, but this is my approach to it and how it works for me. And I end up getting out little bitty details like those little tiny antenna or little pinchers or whatever those are on the spider's head. That's some pretty detailed stuff, and it usually works. Every once in a while a little piece will break off here or there, which I usually don't mind with an embed that's a spider that might have had his little antenna break off, or pincher or leg or whatever, or tree branch. And these little teeny tiny tree branches, when I got those in the mail, I was very disheartened. I did not think I would be able to get soap down into each little crevice and then be able to bring it back out. Well, since this is a very heavily embed focused video, this is one of the reasons I chose to do this, is I'm doing that Embed series, and these are some of the more difficult embeds I work with. A couple of key points is when you are pouring, one of the reasons you want it to be really fluid, and try not to pour it at a colder temperature like you would if you're trying to get a swirl. It's just not going to work. It's not going to flow into those crevices. Another little tip is to spritz either before you pour, just one little spritz, because these teeny tiny crevices, if you have too much alcohol in them, you're not going to get the soap in there. But if you just spray once, it helps the soap to move. That's one of the benefits of using rubbing alcohol, is it helps soap to move. And that's something that you'll hear me say a few different times in some of my other videos as I'm talking about when to spray or when not to spray. It can also make mica move. So if you're spraying, you see those mermaid tails sitting there that I did a couple weeks ago. I did the video for a couple weeks ago. If you spray an embed like that's been painted with mica, which you can't see at the moment, but well, you see the one at the top right-ish of the screen there. If you spray that right before you pour the soap, it's going to come off in your soap. So just something to keep in mind. Pour that layer of soap before you spritz with alcohol, and then spritz gently, because you're not trying to get under the soap. You're just trying to cool it a little and allow the next layer to adhere and get any bubbles out. So there's, as you see here, there's some options for the colorants when you're using stained glass. If you would like to see more about that and learn more about that, please watch my previous stained glass video. The stained glass soap video is specifically geared on colors and colorants and how to use mica and still have a transparent colored soap. Just some suggestions for you on that. Right now I'm using the Zenny color, which seems to be a little harder to come by right now. If any of you know of a place that you're able to find it at the moment, please leave that in the comments. I will put the link I use in my description part of the video, but right now it's telling me, and this is October 4th, 23. Right now it's telling me they're sold out, and I plan on emailing the owner of the shop that I purchased it from in Canada and asking when they're going to have it back, but I keep forgetting to do that. So if you know of another place that you can get it to the U.S., let me know, and let some of my other viewers know. Or if you know of a place that you can get it for my people who watch that are in the UK or any other country, tell us where you find it if you have found it or seen it. Because we like to share here. We don't like to keep secrets and have, gateways for all of our stuff, most of the time anyway. So 2 comments about what you see me pouring right now. I'm making the windows. I'm making the stained glass for the windows. And as you see me talking about up there, the reason I say that is because real stained glass does have little flaws in it. So don't worry about little flaws. A moment ago, you saw me pour clear soap in that orange one. Well, that wasn't just to give it like a mottled look, like, oh, look at this old stained glass that's discolored or wasn't the color didn't fully mix in, which sometimes happens and gives it a really cool look. Sometimes it's done on purpose. But it's also because I didn't estimate properly the amount of soap. So I thought to myself, well, I could melt some more and try to add some more color, but I didn't want to risk having that soap set up on me first. So I thought, oh, I'll just pour a little clear in there, and it does give a cool effect and a look that looks like stained glass. And the yellow one ended up, for some reason, more than the others, ended up bubbling quite a bit. And ooh, real quick, that little moment you just saw where I shoved a bucket under the camera, there's a reason for that. There was, and I'll get back to the bubbles later, but it's sort of connected. You saw bubbles in that bucket in a little pile in the center. That is about perfect. When and usually you can achieve that at about the perfect melting temperature or pouring temperature, which is always a little bit the melting temperature as far as how hot you get your soap to melt it always needs to go a little above the melting point because, well, especially I should say, not because you might not add fragrance and colorants, but if you do, it's going to lower the temperature. So you have to overshoot a little bit. That being said, it seems to be also about the perfect temperature for all of the soap bubbles to rise to the top and come to the center. That seems to work out to perfect for me, for what my use is. It differs greatly. Here's my little, boy, I'm all over the place today. Here's my little demo. Just swipe it off while it's still wet. If you're not comfortable using a knife. Okay, it's going to make a mess, so look at what you have around you. That's why I didn't come back and fix the tree here that you see me, because I didn't want to ruin my dragon. So I would have normally done a second swipe on that, But by the time I moved the little dragon, it was too set up and it would have just pulled the soap out of the mold. Anyway, so that's a technique to use if you don't want to use a knife the way I do. I have a lot of experience using a knife for carving and cutting various odd surfaces and textures. So, so the bubbles, you saw them there. I think that you could see them pretty clearly in the yellow. How many times, I don't know if you've seen a lot of stained glass in person, but if you haven't, you should go do that because it's gorgeous for one thing. But you can also note that there's bubbles in a lot of stained glass and glass art in general. It's difficult to keep all of the bubbles out and usually not possible. And so that you'll usually find bubbles in art glass and stained glass. And that is, by the way, one of my favorite things. It's one of the reasons I'm very obsessed with the crystal clear, premium crystal clear soap from Wholesale Supplies Plus. I'm not paid by them. I don't have an affiliate link for them, anything like that. I absolutely just love that soap. And that type of look, the glass art, super clear look, is what led me to Melt and Pour and held me there. It fed my addiction for clear things, clear soap, clear glass art, plastic, gemstones, anything transparent or very transparent with some color in there, even translucent. I'm just obsessed with that. So I have been since pretty much almost before I can remember, as young as I can remember. I've always gravitated toward that and sparkly things. So stained glass is something that you will probably see me come back to every once in a while. The reason I wanted to do this one, even though I already have that colorant video that is showing different ways to get clear colored soap, is I wanted to do a Halloween version, and the embeds that I use for Halloween are some of my most complex embeds. So I thought it'd be kind of a perfect marriage for a good video showing a Halloween design and focusing on more complicated embeds and how do you get them to cooperate with you and not melt them. I can't tell you your perfect temperature, of course, to not melt them because I don't know what soap base you use. If you look back another video to look for more complicated embed work, particularly embedding in little layers like this, is my koi pond soaps. The one that's the whole full pouring of my koi pond soaps, not the individual ones where I make just the embeds. But you want to catch the one where I do the pours. That gives you a real good insight and some pretty decent, I think, I have to go back and watch it again, but I think some pretty decent instructions on how to avoid melting your embeds and still get them, and also how to keep them from floating away, keep them in place. This one, it's not really fair to say I can tell you that much about that in relationship to this soap because the embeds are, well, no, there is a spot. So we'll talk about it when I get there. But the embeds that you saw me make, the spider and the little branches and the bats, and you didn't see me make the skulls, but there's a little skull at the top right there. I am going to use a couple of skulls in these. And you didn't see me make them because I was making them for something else. And the ones you saw me make were out of black soap, and they are glow in the dark. I will be playing in the next couple of weeks with a glow in the dark video. I've ordered the new glow in the dark blue. There's an intense blue. I can't think of the name of it, so forgive me, Mad Micahs, but they have a new glow in the dark that is supposed to be a deeper blue, and that's on its way to me, and I plan on kind of comparing it to the blue, the glow blue that I already have from them, and playing around with it and exploring different ways to use it because I love the glow-in-the-dark pigments. They're a lot of fun, as you'll see in a little while. So just to kind of catch up with what you see going on the screen, the little design for the window, I just drew that. You could probably download something if you wanted to, if you were not confident in your drawing skills to make a little archway. You could probably find something easily and trace it. I just did it on a little piece of cardstock, and then just traced around it. I got to tell you, I picked the wrong tool to trace around with it. I did okay with the little bitty knife there. It's easier with the stylus, and that's what I intended to do, but forgot to bring it out when I was gathering my stuff for filming. So instead of going back and getting it, I don't know, I was lazy and said, well, the knife's right here. So I did that, and it's a little more difficult. It's obviously not impossible, or you would have seen me getting up and going to get my stylus. But one of the things I was trying to point out, but I keep rambling, is that this design, I've never done this design before. This is my first time. So I'm kind of experimenting. I know the shape I want. I know the idea I want. I want a stained glass window, a Gothic looking stained glass window, like from an old haunted house or haunted-ish house, or whatever you want to call it, a house that looks haunted. Those windows are fairly iconic in a lot of your spooky movies, and this time of year, that's why I chose to use that shape. And I also wanted to have images, like you're looking out the window and you see things. And so that's kind of what this is. And it also, to me, really highlights the clarity that you can get from the soap, particularly from the Crystal Clear, which is, by the way, that is the only soap I'm using for the window portion and for this little pour. All this pour is a tiny layer, the thinnest layer you can get in the bottom of the mold, and it literally is just to hold these pieces in place while I pour the other stuff. And I chose to do that in clear because you don't want to see anything. I didn't want to have to scrape anything off. I've done that in the past where I just put the stained glass pieces in and pour the black, but then the black leaks under, and then you end up having to trim it. And I mean, it's not impossible, but I just didn't feel like dealing with it, so I thought I'd try this approach. So I'm pouring in the clear and placing them the way I want. It doesn't hurt to play around with the pieces beforehand. Otherwise, you wouldn't have seen me go back and have to recut those shapes a little bit because they were bigger than I thought. They're almost always when you're doing embeds, the embeds are bigger than you think compared to your mold. So always measure and also always try them in the mold, because even if you're measuring with a measuring tape, you think it's going to work here and it's too thick here or too thin there or whatever. Always try to place them in the mold first and then pull them back out again and pour in your anchoring. I guess I'll call that. It's like an anchoring layer, that little clear bit. And you'll see me do that again when I take the whole bar and I do make the soaps a little heftier. I wanted them a little bit more kind of foreboding looking and a little bit just, I don't know, a little bigger. I like big soaps. And I cannot lie. But I do keep one small. So you'll see I keep one of these. I don't put in the mold to kind of frame it before I add the back pieces. The reason for that is because I didn't measure. I have done soaps. Here's more clear being melted. I have done soaps that I've framed before from this mold. I've taken this mold and then put that shape down into my loaf mold. And I've done that to where I had 3 soaps and they fit perfectly. But this one didn't want to do 3 and it didn't want to do 4. So I did 3 and I kept the 4th one as is. I don't know. In my head, I just had 4 designs I wanted to get done. So I did this other one and just left it as the 4-ounce size. So the little one will be 4 ounces, and the larger it came out to be, I think, about 6 or 7 ounces. I haven't labeled them yet, so that's why I haven't weighed them yet. So fragrance, I'm not going to go big into the fragrance because it's kind of a proprietary blend. It doesn't mean it's a blend you can't use. I just it's kind of specific to the theme I'm going for. The Gothic window is part of a whole series I'm doing that I'm calling Nevermore. Again, just going with that Gothic feel. And I've got an Edgar Allan Poe looking soap called Nevermore that's got the little raven skull and a rose, and I forget what else is in that little. And a feather, a raven feather. So I was just kind of playing around with that for my theme for Halloween. And this fragrance is basically ozone, which is kind more a note, but a while back, I don't know if you can still get them, but you could get these little kind of fragrance makers, fragrance oils that are meant to be mixed to create other fragrances, and they're simple notes. And this was from Wholesale Supplies Plus. I don't know if they have them anymore because I use them up slowly. I just use a little bit here and there. But the ozone, if you're not familiar with what that smell is, it's right before or right after it rains. It's kind of it's a very clean fragrance, very clean smell, but it's not, to me, it's best on its own. So I usually try to add a couple of little notes in here and there. But I love any fragrance that has ozone in it. And then I added a little bit I think I added a little bit of a fruity note and a tiny bit of floral. A lot of your airy kind of clean fragrances have just a touch of a floral. So if just play around with it a little bit. Just put a little tiny 1 drop of each fragrance on a Q-tip and put them in a Ziploc bag. Shake them up, open it up, give it a sniff. That's how you test them. And then if you don't like the balance, sometimes just add an extra drop and play around with it that way. So there's the one that I just did in the, I'm cleaning them up now. The yellow one is the one I do in the pink mold, and I don't add a frame. The other stained glass soaps I do end up having a frame, but I don't use this purple loaf mold for that. I did a much bigger, what do you call them? Slab mold. I used a slab mold for those. So I didn't want to make that many at this time because I wasn't sure if I'd like the design. I wasn't sure what I was doing with it. So when I'm experimenting, I usually try to do a few and not a ton of soaps because I don't want to end up getting stuck with them, or, you can always rebatch, but also I'm hoarding my crystal clear soap because they're still out of it at Wholesale Supplies Plus. I'm in tears over that. So you saw I just poured the clear layer pretty hot and put those face down. So the front of the soap went down into the clear soap, and then I left enough room on either side that could give me like a frame around the window. Something I haven't done yet, and I may go back and do, is I may bevel the sides of those. I don't know. I haven't completely decided that. And like I said, they're not wrapped and labeled yet. So we'll see. We'll see what I do. If I do, I'll retake pictures and post them. So after I poured, did I already do the black? I'm talking too much. Oh, no. Okay. So I'm going to do this is the little one. This is in the 4-ounce mold. And I'm just giving it a layer on the back, a clear layer, not only to kind of seal everything in together because it always gives a nice final look when you're piecing stuff together to give an extra clear layer, but also to adhere my little branches to the back. And I think this one came out really cute. I liked all of them. I really did. I think they're just really fun. And then I'm sprinkling a little bit over the top just to kind of seal it in. Yes, it pours off. Yes, it looks like that's wasted soap. I promise you I will use that. I doesn't matter if it gets in with the black or not. I'm going to use it for something because that's what I do. I reuse every scrap pretty much unless it's something that's really icky, gets overheated or something. I keep poking the sides. I don't know if you saw me poking that with a little stick and with a knife at other points. All I'm doing is trying to test how solidified that clear layer is because I really don't want, right now I'm about to pour black down there and I really don't want that to slip in and mix in with the clear. So I had to make sure it was fully set up. I am pouring this pretty hot. I think I'm pouring it around fairly hot for Crafter's Choice Premium Crystal Clear because that's what I'm using. So for me, hot means with that soap, it means around 130. 128 is a good starting point for that, and then I wouldn't take it any hotter than 133. I find like that's the point where you're toying with melting something, but you do want everything to adhere well. So you're basically wanting to melt a little bit of that first layer of any soap that it's touching. So it helps to encompass it. It helps to keep it as a unit as you're using it. I did use one of my other stained glass soaps recently, and it held together quite nicely. I was very pleased with that. Just this one, I'm spraying heating the clear layer and getting all the bubbles out. And obviously, there's time that went by in between. You don't want to watch me sit around and wait for soap to set up. But the black layer was fully set up before I poured this clear layer. And I'm playing with the placement of these little embeds now. Because it's such a small layer, I can pour it pretty hot, and it's not going to hurt these embeds to put them in. They're not going to melt. Even with these teeny tiny little spider legs, I pop it in there, try not to move it too much. You saw me adjusting a little bit. But if you try not to move it too much, you're less likely to have melting, but also just a thin layer. And then I pour, before it sets up, I pour more on top. That's important. If you let it set up, now you're talking about having to layer and get it hot enough to stick to everything. Well, this is hot enough, but I'm pouring a little bit in there and then spraying again right away because that cools it right away. And it's no longer in danger of being melted, but it's still liquid enough that I can come back in and add this extra spider that I hadn't planned on, but I saw him sitting there and I thought, well, maybe, because I knew 2 full spiders weren't going to fit. So I cut him off a little bit and he's just peeking around the corner. And that's something to keep in mind. We don't always think of using our embeds partially. I've cut up so many different types of embeds to use in a way that works for me. So don't be afraid to do that and play with that. You'll see when you see the full spider how it looks. Look how cute. See, it's just less than half of him showing. There's way more than half of him there because I wanted him to adhere to the outside really well on the back. So he goes back further, but I'm about to cut him up a little more. And I'm trimming. This is my big double-handled cheese knife. This is my second favorite thing next to my Uncle Andy's. If I'm doing loaf soap of any kind, it's Uncle Andy's all the way. But this isn't a loaf soap. Even though it was done in a loaf pan, the design was not vertical. It was horizontal and flat. And so you're looking at the bottom of that mold, and you have to cut that way. You don't want to use Uncle Andy's for that because it's not going to work unless you, I don't know, it might work if you measured everything out for that size cut. I'm not sure if it would go that far, that wide. I don't know. I haven't tried it because I just use my knife for that, and it's much easier. So basically, you're seeing it here. I was just wanting to point out in some of the pictures I posted recently that I intended for the front of the soap to be the stained glass, and the back of the soap is the bats and the spiders and the embeds. And I think it came out really cool. I think you see them really well through that soap, despite the bubbles here and there and the little imperfections. And I don't mind that. I think it makes it look really cool. There's the little branches. Now, the only thing with that one is I wish I had cut off a little bit more of that kind of turret shape at the top, because it ended up the black didn't quite meet together. But that's like really getting picky. So, which is what I tend to do with myself. I am harder on myself than anybody else. And here's my little skulls. The top one is the blue. The green one is the bottom, the glow green. And I don't think I included enough of the blue in the batter, in the soap. The green I used plenty, and it shows up really, really well. They do look better than what it's showing here. It was much harder to capture on film than to just look at it. It's quite bright in person, and also quite bright you'll see it in the pictures I do toward the end, which is coming up very soon. So while I know that we're getting closer to the end in the end pictures, I just want to, because I always forget to get to stop talking. I want to thank you for hanging around with me, and hopefully I was able to give you some kind of tips or help with something. Always feel free to ask questions in the comment section, and feel free to reach out to me. I love to teach and help people to learn, and hopefully I provided some valuable information. It would help if you like and subscribe, because that helps my channel to grow and will help me in the long run. I've really hope some of this was worthwhile. I feel like I rambled for an hour. Oh, and here's the skulls real quick. Here's the skulls without. They still look really cool even when they're not glowing, in my opinion. And hopefully I will see you soon. And like I said, next week or a couple weeks from now, I'll be doing some glow-in-the-dark experiments. So I hope you'll join me for at least for that, if not for more. I have several playlists from beginner to advanced, and I hope that you can find something to get out of those. I thank you as always for engaging with me and for watching my videos. It's so appreciated. I hope you have a great day. Thanks. Bye.